Call to order, Bedford Township Planning Commission, regular meeting, August 28, 2019. If you can, please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Steffen, can you take the roll call?
Ms. Tinneberry.
Present.
Mr. Zeinbeck.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Garbrick. Here. Steffen is present. Mr. Fritz.
Here.
Chairman Anger.
Here. Next, we move on to approval of the agenda. If there's no additions, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Next, we move on to the approval of the minutes for the July 24, 2019 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for anyone that was here for that meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? And then Joe's abstaining, I believe, because you were not here, correct? Thank you. Next, we move on to public comment. We'll limit this to 3 minutes. This is for anyone that would like to speak on anything, anything at all. Seeing that we have none, we will move on to new business. First is a request for final site plan approval for Hampton Manor Assisted Living Center for Hampton Manor Premier Assisted Living, 1320 Rickett Road, Brighton, Michigan 48116, located on parcel number 5802-032-05563 on the south side of Stearns Road, east of SECOR Road, Lambertville, Michigan. Karen, can you give us a rundown?
Yes. Again, the applicant is Michael L. Priest and Associates. Evan Priest is speaking on behalf of Build Senior Living. The owner is Build Senior Living. Subject site is the large parcel that has been divided, and this was recently rezoned, the 7 acres, to RME, and it is for an elderly housing residential facility, skilled care facility. Site characteristics and information. On March 19, 2019, the Township Board approved to rezone a 7-acre portion of parcel 5802-032-05560 from R2A, single-family residential, to RME, elderly housing. And on May 24, 2019, the parcel was approved for land division. The applicant is proposing a 61,784 square foot building for an elderly housing care facility. Proposed are a total of 76 units, 5 2-bedroom units, and 71 1-bedroom units. The site layout indicates 4 proposed courtyard areas having access only from the interior of the building. The site plan shows sidewalks being installed along Stearns Road and an interior sidewalk around a portion of the building. The landscaping plan, per section 400-1907, provides a variety of streetscape plantings to buffer the parking lot from the street. It meets the requirements of a minimum of 1 ornamental tree for every 50 lineal feet of frontage, plus 1 shrub for every 10 lineal feet or portion thereof of frontage. No interior parking lot landscaping is required. The landscaping plan also shows a variety of plantings to be installed within the courtyard area. In addition to the proposed landscaping, while an off-site shared detention pond is proposed and will be submitted separately from this site plan for review and approval to ensure compliance with the Monroe County Drain Commission and the township requirements, the landscaping requirements shall include landscaping of 1 deciduous or evergreen and 10 shrubs to be planted for every 100 lineal feet of pond perimeter as measured along the top of the bank elevation. Once the review letters are received from the Monroe County Drain Commission and the Manikin Smith Group, the plan will be forwarded to the Planning Commission for site plan approval. Regarding lighting, in reviewing the illumination plan, light poles within a site that requires less than 100 parking spaces shall not exceed 20 feet in height. There are 14 light poles shown within the parking areas 20 feet in height, and the building mounted lighting on all sides of the structure are at 8 feet in height. All exterior lighting shall be fully shielded and directed downward to prevent off-site glare, including building-mounted lighting with more than 600-watt bulbs. As required by ordinance, the intensity of light within the site shall not exceed 10-foot candles at ground level at the property line when adjacent to other commercial properties, and within the site shall not exceed half-a-foot candle at ground level and at the property line when adjacent to residential property. The submitted lighting plan complies with the foot candle requirements. However, it should be verified all wall lighting is directed so to prevent off-site glare. Parking, the regulations for parking requirements of site plan states parking calculations are 1 space for each 2 units and 1 space for each employee, which requires 48 parking spaces. There are 51 spaces, including 5 barrier-free spaces shown on the site plan, which exceeds the requirements by ordinance. The dumpster screening is shown on the site plan. The dumpster location is to the southeast corner of the parcel and is being screened by a masonry wall with a lockable gate. And it's stated the bricks facade will match the main building. Loading and unloading. Per section 400-1906E, multiple family and elderly housing requires a 10-foot by 30-foot space for each building over 20,000 square feet. It should be verified as the planning department was advised there are only small box truck deliveries and no need for a loading unloading area. The signage is not being proposed at this time, and approvals have been received from the Mannequin Smith Group with comments and conditions on July 16th, Monroe County Road Commission with comments and conditions on July 30th, Monroe County Drain Commission with comments and conditions on August 15th. The Monroe County Drain Commission is continuing to work with the applicant regarding soil erosion, and should final site plan approval be granted, it should be conditioned upon obtaining all soil erosion sedimentation control permit from the Monroe County Road Commission. Fire Department also approved with comments and conditions on July 14th. Should final site plan approval be granted, you may want to include the following. Final site plan approval shall be contingent upon addressing all comments, conditions of MSG, MCDC, MCRC, and BTFD review letters, conditioned upon obtaining a soil erosion sedimentation control permit from Monroe County Drain Commission, and any proposed signage shall be submitted and approved by the Planning Department before installation.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have a representative for the applicant? If you can come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sam Martin, 5275 Conestoga. I'm one of the owners.
Thank you. Do you have anything?
Priest,
Oh.
the engineer in the project. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add to Karen's summary?
I don't believe I do, no. It sounds like she nailed it, so good job.
Jody did. Thank Jody.
Is it us?
Yes.
Oh. I have some.
Yes, Nancy?
I have a couple of questions here. This may sound very picky, and it is very picky, but being a deputy clerk in another township, I've gone through very, very old records that have nowhere to go, and I noticed on your application, there's a, and also having been a school teacher, there's an illegible signature. I don't know if that's yours, but there's no printed name and no date. So in the, for archival references, there wouldn't be any way to know who signed this. So if at some point you could print your name and put the date, I would appreciate it. Okay, that is picky, but I think it's important for the future reference.
Oh, good point. No, you're absolutely right.
And then the wall lighting that was mentioned, it says it should be verified that all wall lighting is directed so it prevents off-site glare. Will that be verified by the building inspector, or how does that happen when the building starts going up?
I'm assuming Evan may be able to discuss that this evening. Are you familiar with the wall packs that they're using, or should we wait and have the building official take a look at that?
The reason I'm asking is because there's residential in that area, and maybe even more as the rest of that, the owner of the parcel develops. It's R2A, and so I'm just concerned about future neighbors.
The only lighting system on the outside of the building, like on the walls, we use residential lighting. We try having it home-like, so that's really all we use on the building itself. We have some downlight that lights up the pillars just for effect, but it doesn't shine anywhere. It's more or less of a can light that shines down on the pillars. But for the most part, on the building, it's just residential. We pick it up at the local home stores to make it a home light type of a feel.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I was just concerned, you're not trying to light the wooded area or anything on, okay. Just concerned. Nowadays, you know, you gotta be careful about who might be out there. And then the loading and unloading. My mother was in an assisted living facility, and they brought in their own furniture, so we had to bring in larger trucks for that. Do these residents, are you furnishing the facility, or do they have their own furnishings?
Most of the time, they have their own furnishings. The truck goes right underneath the awning area. And the apartments aren't very big, so it's pretty minimal. Once everybody's moved in, for the most part, as far as deliveries go, it's really just a weekly thing. And it's usually pretty early in the morning when a truck comes to deliver food. So, and that's just once a week, so.
Okay. I was wondering if you had a food service that would come in there too. Okay.
We do, yep.
Okay. I mean, that meets the code, or the ordinance, but, and then no signage, no current signage? I mean, how are you gonna let people know who you are?
We will have a sign, but I don't believe it's been discussed exactly what your township is requiring.
Okay.
We usually get with the townships, they get with the sign companies, communicate. I have it all drawn up exactly what the sign's gonna look like, and then you tell me how big it can be. I would like to make it as big as possible, but most townships say it's only gonna be such a certain size. You communicate that to the sign companies, they make it, put it in, and it's set, so.
Okay.
Yeah, simple as that.
I wanted to hear that from you, because in here it says that it hasn't been designated, so. Okay, that's, there are several things that will need to be in the motion that, you know, will still have to be met with the Monroe County Drain Commission and Road Commission and that sort of thing, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Of course, yes.
Yes, Mr. Jenkins?
For your, excuse me, parking calculations, how many employees on a given shift?
Given shift is gonna be approximately maybe 8.
Okay. So 38 parking places, one for each 2 units, assuming not all the people are going to be driving.
Well, +2, that's at the peak part of it. That's gonna be like at the, there's shifts that go from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, then 3 to 7, and 7 to, or I'm sorry, let me start all over. It goes from 7 in the morning to 3, and then 3 to 11, and then 11 to 7. So for the daytime, there can be anywhere between 6, most part would be 8. Nighttime and early in the morning, there's probably half that, probably 4 and 4. So I'm just trying to guess high, then guess low.
Yeah, we've run into parking situations and other similar developments where there definitely wasn't enough, especially during shift change.
This is our 9th project, not trying to interrupt you, I'm
Similar.
sorry.
Similar to this?
Almost identical to this, and we never ran into having to worry about. The only time we ever had times where parking was limited is holiday seasons, of course. We have big Christmas parties, different things like that, but, you know, as far as day-to-day, we never have any issues. Unfortunately, most families don't really show up a lot to visit their families, and that's the whole premise of what we're there for. We're going to be part of their families, but their families really don't show, so it's mainly the employees.
Also on sheet 12, it shows a LED wall luminaire, wall pack. Not really a residential thing, so I think that's what Karen was referring to. It doesn't look like it's shielded, so when those are installed, the building official or somebody should go out there and make sure it's not glaring on the neighboring property.
Over here.
Whereabouts on the building is that? I'm unaware of that one.
Photometric plan, you're certainly agreeable to doing exactly what you said.
Right. Yeah, of course, it'll be down chilled. We don't want it to look like a commercial building. We want that look and feel of a home like.
That's all I had.
On that second, on the second page there, it says it will not exceed 10-foot candles at ground level. So, that shouldn't be any clearer.
I think the construction of it looks beautiful, and the renderings you guys did, it's very well done.
Thank you.
I like the courtyards in the center too, that adds a nice homey.
That's the whole premise of what we're trying to do. We want them to make it feel like it's their home. So we want the neighborhoods to feel like it's part of their subdivisions, and we want the residents to feel like they're part of the subdivisions as well too. We don't want a commercial look or feel to it at all. So, and it always looks so much better in person than it does on these renderings. So.
Any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make that motion. Make a motion to grant final site plan approval contingent upon addressing all comments and conditions of the Manikin Smith Group, Monroe County Drain Commission, Monroe County Road Commission, Bedford Township Fire Department, and the receipt of a soil erosion sedimentation control permit from Monroe County Drain Commission, and any proposed signing shall be submitted to be approved by the planning department before being installed.
Support.
Ms. Stephanie, take the roll call.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Ms. Tenenberry.
Yes.
Mr. Zybek.
Yes.
Mr. Garver.
Yes.
Stefan votes yes. Mr. Fritz.
Yes.
Chairman Nager.
Yes. Motion approved.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to item B, which is a request for a sign waiver for Bedford Public Library on parcel number 5802-021-05310, otherwise known as 8575 Jackman Road, Temperance, Michigan. We lost Karen. Jody, would you like to give us a...
Again, the applicant is Bedford Public Library. Sign company is Graphic Signs. Owner is Bedford Township. Location is 8575 Jackman Road. Parcel number 5802-021-05310. The applicant is seeking to replace the existing sign with a monument sign to include an LED message board at the Bedford Public Library located at 8575 Jackman Road. For section 400.1922.1. States, no flashing, moving, osculating, or intermittent type of illuminated sign or display shall be permitted in any zoning district except for the time and temperature signs that are designed to serve the public rather than advertise, and which must first be approved by the Planning Commission. While the sign design meets the requirements by ordinance, a variance is required to allow the LED message board. On August 20th, 2019, the Township Board granted the fee waiver for the application for this request. Should the request be considered, the following waiver is required to allow an LED message board. The following shall be considered for inclusion in any motion to approve. All required permits shall be obtained from Bedford Township. The applicant shall continue to maintain the entire perimeter landscaped area of the base no less than 2 feet wide, growing in a healthy condition, and the sign shall be located outside the road right-of-way and the corner clearance area. And I do believe the sign is going to be located in the existing sign location. It's just for the message board.
Thank you, Jody. Is there a representative for the library? Could you just state your name and address for the record?
Yes. Jolly Green Giant. Jackie McMahon, 7957 George Street, Lambertville, Michigan.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add to the summary?
No, the sign is going to be the exact same size that it currently is, so. That's all we need for the variance is the electronics.
Yes, Joe?
I guess the answer, question maybe to Karen, is this all set up for the, at night where it's lighter, and is that in our ordinance and everything?
It's not in our ordinance. It's something you may want to address, that they, because they do have the capabilities of dimming in the evening hours,
Okay.
and the message change. We have typically in the past recommended, well, actually placed on as a condition that the message not change more frequently than every 5 seconds, so to eliminate distraction.
Do you guys have a problem with that?
No, we already have talked about the dimming of the light, too.
Okay.
Yes, Nancy?
I just have a question for the attorney for clarification, and that is because, I just want you to feel important tonight, Tom. That is, I'm assuming you're the chairman of the Library Advisory Board? No?
I am the vice president of the Friends of the Bedford Library.
Oh,
We're
the
the ones
Friends.
paying for it. Yeah.
Okay, oh, the Friends are paying for it, okay.
Mhm.
My concern is that the applicant says Bedford Public Library, and Jody is our wonderful librarian in Bedford, but because the township owns it, isn't really the township, they own the property and the building, and they'll own the sign. Aren't they really responsible for continuing to maintain the perimeter and understanding all of the requirements?
I listened to everything you said. And I listened to everything you said, and I agree with everything you said. All those, subject to this,
Yeah.
that, and everything, I agree with all of that. And yes, they would be responsible. I thought where you're going to go is, do they have the right to apply and what have you? But yes, it is going to be, as we all know, the property has been owned, always has been owned by the township. So the township is the accountable party. And so any approval that is given is applicable to the owner, and that is the township. They're here as the Friends, they're a group, as you know, that they speak for the library and what they need and what they want and what have you. So I don't have a problem with that part of it.
No, I
So,
don't either.
But definitely the township is the accountable party.
And I appreciate you coming and being here and making application. I think the sign is a wonderful thing. But I just think that when the motion is made, it should be referred to as the township and not the library. And then also that the planning department should alert the supervisor as to what this board, commission, or whatever
Yeah.
decided. So
And
that he's aware it's the township's responsibility and
Yeah.
maintenance.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen here is that the township is, like I said, responsible for the property, and that means they're responsible for the sign. As far as the message that's going on the sign, the library might have something to do with that,
Right.
probably.
Right, I would appreciate that they would take care of their own message. Thank you.
I imagine the current sign also would be the same thing. We're just changing to a LED. So the township
Right.
is still own the current sign. We just are changing the ability to make a message.
Yes, correct. And no campaign messages on there, I just want you to know.
So Dennis would have to go out Kohler and write himself up?
That's it.
Is there any more questions or concerns? If not, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the sign waiver for Bedford Public Library on parcel 58020021053110, otherwise known as 8575 Jackman Road in Temperance, provided that the applicant obtains all applicable permits from the township, continues to maintain the perimeter around the sign, and it is maintained outside the right-of-way. Also, that the messages rotate on a basis no less than 5 seconds. Is there anything else I'm forgetting on that?
Dimming.
The night-
And
night.
It's equipped with nighttime dimming.
Support.
If you could take the roll.
Stefan votes yes. Ms. Tinneberry?
Yes,
Mr. Zybek?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Garber?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Chairman Anker?
Yes. Motion approved.
I'd just like the minutes to reflect that the township, or the board, not only waived the permits for this, but they waived the building permit as well. Any and all permits, fees are waived, because we don't want to pay them, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is item C, which is a request for a recommendation for a reapproval for tentative preliminary plat approval for Hickory Creek Plat 5 on parcel number 5802-035-01400, 5802-035-01500, and a portion of 5802-035-01100, located on Stearns Road, east of Lewis Avenue. Karen,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, the tentative preliminary plat, we have to reapprove or approve again, only because it has expired. So we're not really going to be discussing this. The final preliminary plat has all the information that was approved at tentative preliminary plat approval and now meets the requirements for final preliminary plat approval. It will require 2 separate motions, but we will not be discussing the tentative preliminary plat. So if we can discuss the next item on the agenda and make sure that when we make the motions that we do tentative preliminary plat approval first and then do final preliminary plat approval.
So moved. In the words of Mr. Jenkins. So we're doing request for recommendation for approval for final preliminary plat approval for Hickory Creek Plat on parcel numbers 5802-035-01400, 5802-035-01500, and a portion of 5802-035-01100, located on Stearns Road, east of Lewis.
Okay,
Karen.
this request is for final preliminary plat approval. The applicant is FW Holdings Company. Joe Worley is the owner. The engineer, ESA Engineers, Surveyors, and Associates. The current zoning is R3, single-family residential, and RM2, multifamily residential, and the location is Stearns Road, east of Lewis Avenue. The plat description, this request is for final preliminary plat approval for Plat 5 of Hickory Creek. Consists of 22 lots, one of which contains an existing home on approximately 9.667 acres. The existing home will have access from Red Hawk Lane, which is the project's ingress-egress from Stearns Road, with Falcon Ridge Court, a cul-de-sac east off of Red Hawk Drive. The submitted plan shows the intent is to connect to the existing Hickory Creek subdivision, which will subsequently provide a second means of ingress-egress off Stearns Road via Red Hawk Drive through future development to the south. Tentative preliminary plat approval was granted by the Township Board on June 5th, 2018, which expired on June 5th, 2019, as tentative preliminary plat approvals are valid for 1 year. The zoning ordinance allows for the Township Board to grant an extension of the tentative preliminary plat. However, due to the expiration of the tentative preliminary plat approval, the applicant is seeking tentative preliminary plat approval and final preliminary plat approval. It should be noted, tentative preliminary plat approval requires less information for consideration than what is required for final preliminary plat approval. The tentative preliminary plat approval is being requested as the state of Michigan requires all approvals be obtained in sequential order. Review considerations. The Monroe County Road Commission approved the final preliminary plat with comments and conditions on July 10, 2019. Monroe County Drain Commission approved final preliminary plat with comments and conditions on June 12, 2019. Manikin Smith Group approved final preliminary plat with comments and conditions on August 14, 2019. Eagle, which is used to be MDEQ, Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, State of Michigan. The applicant is continuing to work with Eagle on the site to obtain the necessary permits. Fire Department approved the final preliminary plat with comments and conditions on April 11, 2019. The following should be considered if final preliminary plat approval is recommended, and any and all issues outlined in MCRC, MCDC, the Manikin Smith Group, and the Bedford Township Fire Department letters shall be addressed, and necessary permits shall be secured from Eagle prior to final plat approval.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a representative for Hickory Creek? And if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Joe Worley, 14677 Albane Road, Petersburg, Michigan.
Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the summary?
I don't. Karen did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
I will open it up to the board now. Yes, Ms. Tinneberry?
It's always this me. Sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry really, but anyway. This, I read in here twice about the secondary access, but I admit I'm very poor at reading these maps. So where is it? Is it in there? Am I missing it? Stearns Road? That's only one. Where's the other?
If I may,
Oh,
Yes,
Chair?
Karen?
if you take a look at sheet 1 of 5, where it's highlighted,
wait. Sheet 105.
it's the actual final preliminary plan.
Okay.
The highlighted area is what is being proposed as Plat 5. If
Right here.
you,
105.
I see it. Thanks.
there are going to be additional plats to the south of that.
Yes.
That will connect to the existing subdivision. The Township Board prohibited any further building of homes in the existing area without first providing a second access. So before any homes to the east of what's already developed in the south, Dennis, you want to show her?
Okay.
This will connect, it will move south and connect to the existing development to provide a second access.
Yeah, I see that, but I thought this said when Plat 5,
It will,
where's the first access? Isn't it right here?
which will subsequently provide a second means of ingress, egress off behalf of, through future development to the south. Through future development to the south.
Okay,
So as they develop southward, they will connect.
okay. Well, it wasn't colored in, so I didn't know.
That's the connection.
Okay, got that.
We had the advantage of approving this, so, a while ago.
Okay. Well, I just read that it said provided a second means of ingress, egress. All right. Okay, that was it. I guess I did have another question.
Sure.
The Eagle business, what is it that you have to do for them? The,
They put them in the zoo.
oh, no, they're Joe. See, no wonder. I didn't know.
They
That's
have to
the
work
Joe
with their
thing.
water main extensions and their sewer sanitary extensions. Goes through Eagle, MDEQ. So
Okay.
they continue, before they can develop, they have to obtain those permits from
So what, it's plans or that they're trying
plans
to?
for their extensions of their water and their sanitary lines.
Okay, and
they're
those will all
submitted-
have to be turned into you before they can start construction?
Well, they have to go through final plat approval through the township board after this. This is
Right.
the second of the 3 requirements. So
So they'll have
this
to
is a
have that.
recommendation this evening to the township board. This will be forwarded to the township board for approval. Then they will work on obtaining all of their permits before it comes back for final plat approval and then on to the state for approval.
So they'll have to have that before the township board sees it?
Not with final preliminary plat, final plat.
Okay.
They will have that. We have a checklist that the clerk's department takes in all the information and checks off everything that's required before final plat can be considered by the township board. There's bonding and escrows and things of that nature that have to be obtained.
Okay, thank you.
Did you,
Well,
Mr. Graham?
I probably should just not talk, but I was just going to make a comment, since it was brought up. This second access has been something that has been in the works for many, many, many years, I have to say, and I do appreciate the Worley family sticking with this and providing that, and I see now that there is this connection being made where the access off of Lewis then goes through and then connect right out to Stearns. And this was all caused by an unfortunate incident where they had 2 bridges planned, and then they couldn't build the second bridge. And that was the two access out to the Lewis. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the family, you know, I think Hickory Creek started before Joe was born, but I do appreciate that, that they've hung in there. And that's the second access has been kind of a phrase for all these years. You must have the second access before you can do this, or you have to provide a second access, and you have to provide for it. And so here we are, and the connection's going to be made. This is the kind of thing that makes attorneys happy.
Good job, Joe.
Thank
Really,
you. Thank
really.
you.
I
Thank you very
appreciate the family
Appreciate it very much.
sticking with it.
Been a great project, long project, though. Time to move on.
1993 was when it
Wow.
was first submitted.
That's part of our project inventory list in the planning department was we had LIFO, last in, first out, FIFO, first in, first out, and fish, first in, still here.
Anyway, it's good to see. Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion. Which we have to do
Two motions.
two motions.
Right, yeah.
And it is a recommendation to the township board,
So we do the first one of
tentative.
C and then D, basically separate.
Please.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion for C at this point, which is the reapproval.
I'll make a recommendation, or approval for the recommendation to reapprove the tentative preliminary plat for Hickory Creek Plat 5 on parcel numbers 5802, 035, 01400, 5802, 035, 01500, and a portion of 5802, 035, 01100, located on Stearns Road, east of Lewis Avenue. Do we have to add anything on this one?
No, it's just a reapproval. Thank you.
Support.
All right.
Stefan votes yes. Mrs. Tinneberry?
Yes.
Mr. Zybek?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Garver?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Chairman Ager?
Yes. Motion approved. Now, at this point, I will entertain a motion for D, which is the recommendation for approval for the final preliminary plat.
I'll take that motion. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend final preliminary reapproval for final preliminary plat approval for Hickory Creek Plat 5 on parcel numbers 5802, 035, 014, -00, 58-02, -035, 015, on a portion of 5802, 035, 011, -00, located on Stearns Road, east of Lewis. And probably should add subject to the contingent upon any and all issues outlined in the Monroe County Road Commission, Monroe County Drain Commission, Manic and Smith Group, and Bedford Township Fire Department letters be addressed, and necessary permits be secured from Eagle prior to final plat approval.
Support.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Yes.
Mr. Zybek?
Yes.
Mr. Garver?
Yes.
Stefan votes yes. Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Chairman Ager?
Yes. Motion approved.
I noticed every time we get a new governor, MDEQ gets a new name.
Right.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last on our agenda tonight is a discussion on proposed language for a zoning text amendment change regarding the agricultural zoning district from Ag to an Ag 1 district and an Ag 2 district to bring the zoning ordinance into compliance with the 2015 adopted master plan zoning designation. And this is just a discussion tonight.
Correct. Want me to read them out?
Oh, yes, sorry, Karen.
On October 28, 2015, the Bedford Township adopted the current master plan, where the adopted master plan map includes land use categories: secondary agricultural, rural residential, and agricultural preservation. The master plan's reference to those designations identifies zoning districts Ag 1 and Ag 2, of which are currently non-existent. Please find attached drafted language for such zoning districts. Bedford Township Planning Consultant Lucy Fortin of the Manikin Smith Group will be in attendance to explain how the proposed zoning districts differ from the existing agricultural zoning district. And it's just, if you had any questions, prepare them for Lucy this evening.
Thank you, Karen. Lucy, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Lucy Fortin with the Manikin Smith Group. I'm a community planner, and this work has been in the works. Some of you know that already for a number of years. I think 4 years is really the math if you do the 2015 approval that we did on the master plan. So what I'd like to do, you were given a handout. I'd like to go over it very briefly, show the graphics that I have that are also in your handout, but just sort of go over them to make sure we're clear, because this is complicated. And I have to say that staff and I have been working on this sporadically, really is the word, but every time we get into this, we're confusing ourselves, and we need to reacquaint. It's not an easy matter. There's a math problem. There's all kinds of stuff involved. So with that being said, let me try to simplify it as best as I can. And I think I got it down now. So you had an ag estates alternative development option as part of your zoning ordinance. You still have it. However, it was tied to your former master plan. Your former master plan actually showed an area designated in the township for ag estates development option. That ag estates development option was designed to be the same density as the ag district. However, it would have allowed flexibility in terms of size and frontage of parcels. It had been in place, I believe, since 2003. And I think it's been used once or maybe twice only in the township since it was put in place. So what we're proposing, with the 2015 amendment or update of the master plan, this actually went away. So it's been inactive and unable to be used by anyone at this point, because there's no areas no longer designated for that particular option. So what we're suggesting, or we had suggested, is to replace that option with a secondary ag district, which is more of a rural residential district. We also had talked about it with the steering committee and the master plan to have a density that's slightly reduced at 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres, which represent more what's happening around the township. It would allow also for reduced frontage of 165 feet instead of 330. And the intent of this is really to preserve your large active farms. That's the whole idea. And also your areas of larger parcels that are in prime ag land. So there would be essentially 2 districts. One where we would reduce the amount of splitting being allowed, and one that they could develop as residential development. So if you look at your handout, and I will try to explain it through the table first, and then I'll go to the graphics. So if you look at your handout where there's a table, which is page 2, this kind of shows the potential number of lots you could have with a certain parent parcel. The first column is really the parent parcel. And really, this is all very theoretical. I mean, if you had it doesn't take into account woodland, wetlands, or any other site features that would come in the way. But theoretically, if you look at the Land Division Act and the number of parcels you're able to develop with the parent parcel of certain size, let's take that first row here. For 10-acre parcels, you'd be able to have 4 splits. In the current ag district, you would be allowed only 2 5-acre lots. It would be the same, it would have been the same with the ag estates. In the current ag one, because we're reducing the number, the size of lots and the frontage, you could potentially have 4, and the same for ag 2. So you see, as the parcel is small, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. But now let's move up to an 80-acre parent parcel, because that's the example that's really shown graphically. If you look at the row that calls for an 80 acre parcel, you could get theoretically 11 parcels. Current ag district with 5-acre, you could get 16. It would have been the same for the ag estates, only more flexibility in the size and frontage. In the proposed ag 1 district, you would not be able to get more than what the land division would get you, which is 11. However, in an ag 2 district, you could get up to 32. You know, if you didn't have to subtract wetland and any other features, obviously. So this is kind of a somewhat theoretical number. So graphically, what does this mean? And that's what those graphics really aim to do. So I'm going to go over here and show and go over the colored exhibits that I brought with me. And so the first row here is really the current meter into my zoning ordinance, and the pardon me, you need to use the microphone. The microphone. So the first row is the current zoning ordinance, and this is what we're proposing. Current zoning ordinance, this is what I was saying, if you have an 80-acre parcel, you can get up to 11 theoretically, but really in this case, we were only able to work 10-acre parcels. I mean, 10 pieces, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking. In this particular example where the 80-acre parcel, with a 5-acre lot, you could get a residential development, and in this case, you would be able to get about 13 lots. This would have been what would be representative of ag estates, which no longer exist. In the proposed zoning ordinance, this is what we're aiming for. And I think graphically it really shows how we're trying to preserve larger pieces of farmland and have smaller lots, which means really less sprawl. And more condensed. And I think also the idea that people need 5-acre lots is kind of getting old. I think people are realizing that they don't need that much land in general. So this is what a layout in the proposed Ag 1 could look like with a certain number of splits that are allowed, which are 11. In the Ag 1, you could also get, there's also all these features through the land division and through these allowable that you could get bonuses. You could get bonuses if you don't have drives coming from the road. You only have 1, so you limit the number of drives on the main road. You can also get bonuses if you preserve above a certain amount of percentage of the land in general. So it's an extra 2 lots maximum, which is why you have 13 in this particular example. Now, Ag 2, you could get a fair amount of number of lots. It just simply be based on the 2.5 acre and the frontage. Again, this is an example that doesn't show if there's any woodland, wetland, or other site features that would be limiting the number of lots. So I think this is kind of theoretical and a maximum. So we came from a district that could allow about 13 lots that would cover a whole piece, 80-acre piece, to an area where you can get preserved land on one hand, and another where we would allow rural development, residential development. So we did this exercise also for smaller, and I'm going to put this one up. A smaller lot, parent parcel. And when you look at a parent parcel, it becomes a little less obvious that it's beneficial. This is really more applicable to a larger parcel in terms of what we're able to do in terms of preserving greater piece of land. So these examples, I think you can see that just graphically, that it doesn't really affect a whole lot. It's really depends on what your frontage on the road is. You're limited by that, which if you're allowing the 165-foot frontage lot, you can only have 2. If you have a 20-acre parcel, that's limited to 330 and whatever depth. So the current is 2 and 3, and the proposed is 4 and 5, which doesn't seem like a great variation. But you can see that you have a piece that's being preserved here also as a parent parcel. Now, where we are proposing this, we took a look at where the active farms are in the township and where the larger parcels are remaining and where's the prime ag land. And we drew a line, essentially. Is that up for discussion? It certainly is. So, I mean, this is kind of why we're bringing this up to you as a group. So this area would become Ag 1, and the remaining ag outside of that area would be Ag 2. So there would be some Ag 2 here, Ag 2 around here, which would be a little more open to development at this point in time. So I don't know if it's enough or not enough information, but I would love to hear more.
Yes, Joe?
I got a question for you on that, behind that, the first one you went to, could you take that down? I got a question for you on that. The middle one on the bottom right there.
Yes.
So let's say somebody develops that there and the rest is left into ag. Can that never be developed? It's attorney question, what, can 20 years from now that's filled up? Is that based on what the zoning changes are in the township or something? Somebody don't want to farm that and
That's a good question, and I really don't have a clear answer other than no. I mean, we didn't think that we would allow more splitting in the future. The intent was to preserve the large parcels at this point in time.
Okay.
Can zoning ordinance change? Yeah, they can.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Fritz?
Those large areas in each one of them examples, what would be the restrictions? Could they just do crops? Can they do animals? Raise livestock, pasture?
All of the above. Yes.
There would be no restriction then for the ag.
None other than what you have now.
And would that also allow for one?
Farmstead, yes.
Okay.
Floor director.
Thank you.
She wants you on camera.
Oh, you might.
So I guess, Tom, that's happened to the township over the years. We've had farming and then you get development that happens and more call for it and stuff.
Right, I mean, I didn't want to say too much here, but
Yes.
Dennis, what happened to the ag estates? We worked on that.
Yeah.
And did something go wrong with ag estates?
Lot. It was, basically it was abused.
Okay, it wasn't what we intended
No,
when we
not at all.
wrote that thing up. It didn't work out, right? Is that what happened? And so this process here is an attempt to go at it a different way, really to provide like it is providing a new district, but a district with more density. We could almost call it a residential estates or Ag 2, whichever, it's the
Rural
same.
residential is the term I use.
Pardon?
Rural residential.
Yeah, and so it's the same idea. And of course, there is a huge difference between the 5 acres and the 330 and 100-foot or 80-foot frontage in the residential areas. So there does seem to be a need for that. And you're Lucy, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and
Tom.
so Lucy, I know my farmer partner, Marty, who sits in here a lot. I know he was asking, and I don't expect you to answer right now, but I just wanted to say that he had a couple of comments. And one was, how does this, isn't it every 10 years you get more divisions? You get more land divisions every 10 years. You start over, on the divisions, and that's by state law. And so would we be trying to restrict that, Dennis? Are we trying to restrict that in our zoning somehow?
It would be restricted by the Land Division Act.
But you do, you start over with that 10 years, That was one of his questions. And the other one was, how does condominiumizing, how does that fit into all of this? Where you can take a parcel that's not a division and create the condominiums and what have you. And I'm just giving you things to think about, and you can talk to Marty about it, because we want it to work this time, and I'm in favor of the concept, and we want it to, we want this to work.
Would these be PUDs in town?
Well, I mean, that's the
Right
thing
now,
I
that's
want to,
the way to do it.
what's that?
So right now, other than plating, that's the only way you could do it.
Yeah. I just want to keep that in mind while we're looking at this, to keep in mind that not everybody's going to subdivide. Some people are going to try to do PUDs, that seems to be, and condominiums.
And you still would have to maintain the density in accordance with the underlying zoning of 1 per every 2.5 acres.
Okay. Applicable to condos?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So would a 2-unit condo require 5 acres then?
Yes,
Or
whether they're
2.5.
attached or detached, if they are still 2 individual
Okay.
dwellings, so they would require 5 acres.
Yes, Nancy?
Any questions?
I do. I've been waiting to see if somebody asked him, but no one asked my question. I'm different. I guess, Tom said he's for it. I'm not sure yet. I haven't been convinced. I need to know why. I thought you might tell me why. Why did we need to do this? I mean, is it just to keep some open space?
No, I think the impetus came from the master plan development in 2015. Steering committee discussions, and Dennis may, and Karen may remember that. There was a strong desire to not only reduce the size of lots, but to preserve farmland.
Well, but we preserve farmland when farmers want to farm the land. And, farmers aren't, I work in Ida, and we have a lot of farms up there, but their youngsters aren't going into farming. They're going off to college and becoming planners or something, but, they're attorneys, or they're not wanting to follow in their father's footsteps. And, my thinking is, for a farmer, all of his retirement is in his land. And if he can't sell his land for whoever wants to buy it, I'm thinking that we'd be restricting. I'm all for open space, but I'm not for making a farmer continue to farm or try to find a way to farm his land when he's aging and he wants to retire. So I need help understanding why we're...
Make more money off it, like this way, per lot. If I'm a developer and I'm buying farmland and I can get 18 lots, if I can get 18 lots on there, or just sell 4 lots, it's the end user, like a tree, you're making toothpicks or 2x4s. And the more lots you can get in there, it's more valuable to the farmer and it's more value to me. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's a good, that's good. If that farmer can make money off of it, that's fine, but our daughter lives in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, and they just built on these agricultural estates. They don't want neighbors close by. They want to move out of subdivisions and get out where their kids can have lots of room to run and play, and they can have ponds, and is that going to be permissible in this zoning?
Yeah. Is there, well, so what size of lot does she have?
I think 5 acres.
5 acres?
And our pond ordinance does require a minimum of 5 acres.
Oh, so they couldn't have ponds if they don't have the 2.5, if they only have
The
the
way our
2.5?
ordinance is currently written, they couldn't with the 2.5 acres, but if someone is looking for that type of
Correct.
development, that they want to have a pond, they wouldn't, this wouldn't be desirable for them. They would still be looking for those 5-acre parcels. And as Lucy
Which
said,
are still
ordinances
available,
are
correct,
always,
Karen?
always
Yeah.
subject to
Yeah.
possible change. I mean, we're not saying you have to do this, it's just an option to
Okay.
do
It's
this.
just being encouraged.
And now what about, I mean, I'm an old person, I'm older than Tom, I think, but I think that, I can remember back when we had to get the sewers and water, and it was because of the density, so if this is dense out in farmland, what's the sewer and water situation?
The 2.5 acre lots will be subject to septic. and-
Septic?
Yes, and well.
And the state's gonna
Health
approve
Department.
that with the density and?
2.5 is a fairly large. I think that's generally acceptable to the Health Department. 1.5 really is the smallest they'd like to see, I think, still at this point in Monroe County. But 2.5 is large enough to have a septic field and a well.
But I mean, had there been tests to see if there's enough groundwater for wells in that kind of density? That close?
Well, it really depends on the site itself, and this is not attached to a particular location, so that's part of the site, what I call site limitations, that needs to be looked at, the presence of woodlands and wetlands and other site features, and soil percolation and other things
Right,
like that.
right. Okay, I'm getting there, but I'm not.
Well, one of the things that we were trying to see, if I can add that, is to have somewhat of a balance. We were looking for a balance. We weren't wanting to restrict development, and this is why you have those two, Ag 1, Ag 2. We were really trying to provide ways for development to occur in a way that was acceptable and to allow a more restrictive development in other areas. So, I mean, we were seeking a balance.
Mm-hmm.
I see this as offering best of both worlds, really, and the goal of the master plan. Yeah, I think one of the things that are very unique of our township compared to many others in this area is we do have a very diverse land use, if you will, and I think it's appropriate to preserve that. And there is I would say, in my opinion, probably a new movement. I do think that the big, large lots are coming out of fashion, particularly probably more members of our community. And there's other options out there that might be further if you're looking for a big, in the middle of nowhere type property. And I don't necessarily think our township is designed for that, but this offers a good balance and still maintains some of that agricultural roots, if you will.
Mr. Prince?
Back to my first question, because it was brought into play, the 10 years. What we have here, correct me if I'm wrong, is once you break that up and you get that plot there and you have that 20 acres or 40 acres set aside, that could never change. I'm asking, that could never change to being plotted again.
That was the intent, yes.
The only reason, because I forgot about that, because I live over in Adler, and that's the way I was the first 4, and 10 years later, there was 4 more, and 10 years later. And then now there's 94 neighbors in the back at Adler's Estates. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, but that whole thing is all filled up. I think we need that land, because that farmer, when he goes to retire, that's gonna be a lot more valuable the less land there is. as you know. But I just wanted to see the open spaces, the farms, and the lands being used for that.
But I think legal counsel, you know, your township attorney is gonna have to really review this and the legalities
So we don't know
of
for
everything.
sure yet until
But
the state gets
there's a
involved.
state law, there's a
Right,
Land
right.
Division Act, and so somewhere, we need to be complying with that too. So we'll have to really carefully look at.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins?
I beat you. Part of this came about during the community forums and the master plan process, and this suggestion actually came from some members of the farming community, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes, Ms. Tinberry?
They can have chickens out there?
Mhm.
I see the only difference is really just the size that we're proposing. It's nothing really, the use of it is
It's
changing really.
right. It's preventing fragmentation, if you've heard that term, and preserving open space and rural character.
So even in Ag 2, they can still have a huge farm if they wanted to, but if they want to in the future split it, they can more easily.
That's correct.
Yes, so Ag 2, that can become no farmland.
Correct.
Correct, okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Only Ag 1 is a little more restrictive.
Yes, Nancy?
Well, you said, someone said cows, and I did ask chickens, because, you know, we're going through that chicken thing right now in residential, but I mean, if I lived on one of those 2.5 acres and somebody had a cow and a horse next door, it might seem to be kind of odorous, if that's a word.
There's still restrictions on the size of the land for
So-
animals of that size.
For horses anyway,
Mhm.
minimum of 5 acres for horses.
Okay, so the ag zoning would still apply to
No, the
this?
keeping of animals is
The keeping of
Horses is the only restriction on the acreage for
Oh,
farm
horses.
animals.
So you could have goats and cows
That is correct.
and
Chickens,
In Ag 2?
oh,
it's ag, unless the ordinance is amended.
I was gonna say, if this is supposed to be predominantly residential use, but ag zoning,
Ag 2.
ag 2,
And if you take a look, this is actually our zoning map. Everything that is orange on that map
Mhm.
is agriculturally zoned.
What's-
Many of those, many of those parcels already don't meet the requirements of agricultural, which is a minimum of 330 feet of frontage and 5 acres. So,
Karen, where I live, Concert Road, that's all ag. It's all woods. Nobody's farmed it, but it's ag, correct?
on the north side of
Yeah.
Concert, yes,
It's never been farmed because it's not suitable. It's woods, it's wetlands.
correct. Some was farmed
Yeah.
west of SECOR.
Correct.
There is some farming, but not down near Douglas Road, no.
Correct.
so what's the next step?
Well, I mean, this was up for discussion tonight, and really, if you,
Direction.
Public hearing?
If you want to give us some direction, we want to have the attorneys take a look at it to see as far as the legalities
right,
of what we're proposing. We certainly don't want to propose something that might not.
I like what you're doing. I mean, I really do. You put some thought in it. It's helps some farmland. It helps the farmers if they want to get some more money out of it, density. And it makes it worth more for the developer to buy it. They're going to offer more to the farmer.
And I like the idea of keeping it agricultural to where you can still do the stuff that people who live in agriculture areas want. If you're gonna buy this area, you are expected that you might live next to a goat or a cow. That's kind of what you want.
Chickens and subdivision.
That was, I guess, my question. I think our master plan discussed hobby farms quite a bit. And is that kind of the direction or the designation of this, A2, Ag 2?
no, it's really more rural residential.
Okay.
It's allowing this transition between the farming and the Ag 1 to the residential on the south side. of the township.
Without an amendment to our ordinance, the uses permitted in agricultural would be permitted. We have on occasions, families want to, they have children, they want to have goats for the fair.
Correct, and I
so-
think that was discussed in that master plan, was it not, about that, this designation and use and potential
Yes.
use? And
Yes. So, we'll have, maybe we have to take a real close look, because that wasn't the intent it was to be rural residential. So maybe we need to take a look at that. Is 2.5 acres still large enough to have maybe a limited amount of, depending on your acreage? I don't know. Because right now we have many parcels that don't even meet the 2.5 acres.
I mean, forest projects, I think, could be a special item, period, because they're normally temporary, but
Yes, Ms. Fritz?
If this is passed in some form, and 5 years from now, you're Ag 1, can you bring it to this board to become Ag 2?
any change in the future can happen
Be a rezoning.
if there's a desire.
So the next step is public
Well-
hearing, you said?
Right, I mean, further review by township attorney, then coming back for final language. As part of this handout, you'll notice I did work up a little language amendment with the zoning ordinance, but this has to be thoroughly reviewed by township attorney's office. And,
Don't say.
and then it's a public hearing, yes, then going to the county, then coming back.
Well, if there are concerns about the acreage and the uses that would be permitted in 2.5 acres, we would certainly want to address it while
Right.
amendment, while we're making this amendment.
Right,
We don't want
right.
to have to go back through another public hearing, so.
Right.
Anyone has any thoughts?
I have a question.
Sure.
Lucy, do you know, does the USDA regulate anything on size of acreage, on how many cows or horses, or, I mean, I know we have on horses, but with goats or chickens? Because I actually think, my personal opinion on this is that I think this provides for those people that no longer want to live in a subdivision, but also don't want to maintain 5 acres. This allows them to have those chickens and goats for their families and still maintain a larger piece of property without the whole entire 5 acres. Because we do get a lot of inquiries on that. So I just didn't know if there was other regulations on farm animals, and maybe Tom knows.
I don't believe there is.
I don't, we've never restricted the keeping of animals in an ag district to 5 acres or more. Now, oftentimes farms are defined as 5 acres or more, but once it's zoned ag, we allow the uses. So I am sitting here listening to this, and I see that, and this decision's already been made, and I think it's the right decision, but, so, like, we could take that area and make it into, like I said earlier, a large residential zoning. And then, by making it large residential, you take away the ag component of it. That would be a big step, especially since it's ag now. But you seem to be, and there's no right or wrong, I think I like the way you're doing it better, but this definitely seems to be an attempt to just reduce or increase the density in a portion of your ag district to allow smaller lots, but still, I guess, to allow all the ag features, in other words, the animals. And that could potentially create some issues when people start having a house every 2.5 acres and somebody's got 100 chickens. I mean, there could be some issues, but it seems like you want to keep that flavor of ag, because you could go the other way. You could just say, this is residential, but here's the density, 2.5 acres. That would be the other way to do this. So I think the ag is the better way to do it, but you have to be prepared that people who live out there, they may not understand, but ag means ag. and the USDA does protect that, and the Right to Farm Act and so on, and the GAMPs.
Right. It
So-
would be labeled Act 2.
Yeah, so, and I suppose we could write anything in the ordinance we wanted, when it gets right down to it, as you define this better. But, yeah, this is, we had the 5 acres and 330-foot frontage. We started with that in 1977. That's a long time. Probably a good idea to review this now, look at it. I'm glad you're doing it, thinking about it, discussing it.
And I think if we approach the residents that township's going to change your zoning district from ag, where you have the allowance of having animals and chickens and that, and tell them that they're going to be residential, we might have
A war.
I think
I
that,
think you would.
I think reducing the size and still allowing.
The ag,
And-
keep the ag flavor, yeah,
Mhm.
like I said, yeah, like I was saying, you could go either direction, and this is probably and that's the way we did it with ag estates too, but.
Nancy?
Well, I just would caution, when I heard 4-H, our grandkids have a heifer, 2-3 pigs. They have things that would, they're 4-H, but I don't know. And 2.5 acres, maybe the fact the barn or something, you don't have enough room for a barn, I don't know. I'm just saying that
It's a lot of land.
to
It's
caution.
going on right now. I mean,
That you're that dense and the neighbors moving in, and there's a heifer and a pigs and.
right, some of, like,
And they don't have a farm. They're not in a farm. They're in a residential zoned area, but it's in the
Well,
country.
in residential, we would hear from the neighbors, but if it's agricultural, they know it's agricultural,
Wow.
so.
The Right to Farm Act comes into play too, doesn't it?
Well,
And
the Right to Farm Act is,
They don't farm, though. They don't farm.
right,
They just have, college projects, basically. They do all this to
yeah.
earn money at fair to put in their
Yeah,
college fund.
yeah, there's a part of it that, it's a commercial end of it, that there has to be some commercial enterprise going on, the Right to Farm Act, but, which doesn't apply to your 4-H group, but, no, I suppose, we would have to see if the Right to Farm Act would allow us, if we were to restrict in any way, like the number of animals in a 2.5 acre, I'm not saying that would be hard, but I'm just saying if that's what you were worried about or thinking about, then you could, or just let it go, that you're in an ag area, ag 1, ag 2, the only difference is size of the lots, density, right? That's sort of where you're going.
And we're not restricting it now for those that have 80 feet of frontage and are an acre in size.
But they're
But they're
It's the
agriculturally
neighbor.
zoned.
It's the neighbor.
prior legal non-conforming, I guess,
Mhm.
but, yep.
So
No, I know,
We're
it's
not regulating it now, and we don't appear to be having too much.
too many
we-
issues.
We were not getting complaints that, I live in an ag district, my neighbor has an acre, but he has a cow. We haven't received
That's
calls
not
on
an
that.
issue?
Good.
Watch, tomorrow someone will call.
Yeah.
Are you making that motion, Dennis?
I don't
I
think
think
we're
that's
making a
right.
motion, are we?
No.
No, just
Oh,
to
we're not
set it,
motion.
to set it to the township attorney for review and comment, and
I think it's a great start. I do.
then bring it back and we can schedule a public hearing.
Back at the next planning commission meeting, you mean?
No.
No, we
All right.
won't be able to meet the deadline. We have to publish.
I have a question. Did you say to have it go to the attorneys and then come back and then schedule after the second time it comes back for the
Right.
public hearing? Okay.
Do you, may I ask, do we want to send this to the township board and have them take a look at it for input? Well, the township board member, maybe the township board representative should make that
Township
decision.
board members.
We'll get it eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That's the planning commission's job. to take care of this.
All right, with that, we will move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak tonight? I'll take that as a no. Next is any new information, Karen?
Not at this time.
All right, any staff or commission comment?
I do have something. We're, actually, at the next township board meeting, we're going to be discussing our capital improvement plan. I meant to bring that wording, the legal wording, I'm sure Tom has it on the top of his head, but it states that that the planning commission is supposed to annually review the capital improvement plan, of which Bedford Township does not have one. So at our township board meeting, September 3rd, we're going to be addressing that. And I've asked Dennis to, well, I'm hoping they'll hire Dennis as a consultant to work with me and others on that committee to put together a capital improvement plan and then take it to the board for approval eventually. What the makeup of that committee is, our suggestion will be 2 planning commission members, 2 township board members, 2 members from the public that have experience or background in finance and development and that kind of construction, and then we'll go from there. So that's my proposal that is on the board agenda for next meeting, and if you have any questions, you can ask Tom. It's the law. It is the law, right, Tom? It's the law.
It's the law.
So we haven't done that before, and we need to do it. Actually, Dennis has been, I'm going to say, pushing for many, many, many years for Bedford Township to develop their capital improvement plan, and so I think now it's going to come to fruition. It's a good thing. So if there's any questions? Anybody?
Do you want me to present it? I'm not.
No. You mean the thing tonight? No.
No.
Oh. Well, I want this commission to be thinking about volunteering for a place on that. It's not hard. Don't think it's hard. For some reason, people have always talked about it being hard, but Dennis has a capital improvement plan for dummies cheat sheet, so it can't be too hard.
I can't tell you how many folders we have, capital improvement plan, that we've started and never.
Good. So you should be glad we're moving forward, right?
If there's no other comment, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Meeting adjourned.
Nancy, please thank the township board for the terrific job they're doing on repaving.
Oh, okay.
Douglas Road, north of M151, is getting paved. It has needed it since Moses went to the mountain.